This week, we celebrate Valentine's Day with a discussion about second chances. Should you give it another go with your ex or not? And later, how important is it to have similar interests in a relationship? Do you need to do everything together, or are separate interests okay? Welcome to the talking phase. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Talking Phase podcast. I cannot believe how excited I am because it's Valentine's Day, or at least it will be Valentine's Day when this episode drops, which, hey, it's so romantic. And since this is a podcast about dating and relationships, it's perfect, right?
I'm trying not to gag over here. The day that I ever feel like this podcast is about romance and positivity and falling in love and finding your soulmate and Valentine's Day, like, what's the fun in any of that?
Well, okay. Well, hey, for those who are just joining us, my name is Tom. I am one of the hosts of this amazing Talking Phase podcast. The other host is this incredible lady here. Her name is Pam. Pam, what the hell's going on with you?
Hello, happy Valentine's Day, ladies. We have a much larger female audience than a male audience, although the men are finding us little by little. But in my life, we celebrate Valentine's Day. Most of my friends are single, not all of them, but the majority of us are single. I think that's something about being in your 50s and finding your independence and just realizing how great it is to have good girlfriends. And so we celebrate Valentine's Day. 2 weeks ago, Nikki and I were at the beach doing a partnership with the state of North Carolina. If you want to see what that looks like, sometime around this episode dropping on Mother and Daughter Abroad over on Instagram. That's mine and my daughter's travel page. You can go over there and see us make North Carolina look like it's a lot of fun at the end of January, early February.
Are you trying to make it look like it's not cold?
No, that's impossible. But I think they're trying to get more tourism when it's cold. And so our job was to spend 3 days at the beach in the coldest month of winter, making it look like fun. So we celebrated Valentine's Day early. Getting to spend a weekend with Nikki is always joyful for me. And now all I'm just looking forward to is spring because I've had enough of winter. What about you? What's new with you?
Well, I'll tell you what, my elbows are fucking killing me. I think I mentioned on an episode or two ago that I took some advice on TikTok from some 20-year-old weight lifter. And I tried to incorporate one of his moves into my daily workout, and my elbows have not been the same. So I'm not 25 anymore. I have been going to physical therapy. If you've never tried dry needling, holy shit, what a trip that is, where they jam a bunch of needles into, well, in my case, into my elbows and my arm. And then they start shocking the living crap out of you. So you're sitting there twitching like crazy for 10 or 15 minutes, but it's working. I mean, my arms feel better today than they have in 3 weeks. So it's working. But I will tell you, Pam, you wrote up my workout. What was that, 6 months ago or whatever?
And
so closer to 8 or 9 months ago. And I've done that workout almost every day until 3 weeks ago. And now I can't even lift a pitcher of water without severe pain. So anyway, hopefully that I won't have to keep complaining about that. Anyway, but the other night, Laura was over and she brought some topical lotion, some THC, lidocaine, something or other. And I'm like, all right, I'll give it a try. It didn't do shit. But I will say we did start watching Day of the Jackal. So we always talk about our favorite TV shows here.
So great, that show.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I cannot wait for season 2. So if you haven't started watching that, it's on Peacock. Be sure to do that. And
it stars Eddie Redmayne.
I'm sorry.
If you like Eddie Redmayne,
who's that?
He's the main character, Tom.
Oh, see,
Tom doesn't know anything.
Pam and I have known each other for 8 or 9 months, and one of the things that we've learned is that she knows the actors' names. I know the character names. So she's always Eddie Redmayne or whatever you just said.
Redmayne.
Never heard of him. Literally until
he's won
literally
Oscars.
Right now.
I mean, like, he's a great actor. A lot of people will be drawn to a show because of who's in it, and then if the show's great, they keep watching it. But I just wanted the ladies to know it's Eddie Redmayne. He's not my taste, but
Yeah, I don't
He's
think
probably somebody's
he's not.
taste.
He doesn't make me gay. I'll tell you that. Anyway,
Ugh.
but since this is dropping on Valentine's Day, um, tonight Laura and I are going to another of those candlelight concerts, which is going to be fun. And then tomorrow, we are leaving for Jackson, Wyoming. We're going to drive up and spend the weekend in Jackson. So that's going to be a lot
Wow.
of fun.
Romantic.
Yeah.
How nice. Blech. Just
It's
kidding.
going to be fun.
I'm
But I'll
happy
tell
for
you
you.
what, with that, we haven't talked to Brian for a couple of weeks. Brian, how's everything going for you, man?
It's going good, Tom. Going good. He's not going to make me gay either in that Netflix doc.
Eddie Redmayne.
don't
I
have
just
that
want to know
situation.
what you're doing for Valentine's Day.
What am I doing for Valentine's Day?
Not anything with Eddie Redmayne or whatever his name is.
Yeah, probably not with him. And candidly, like having a little baby girl who's just less than 2 years old. Probably not going to be doing too much on Valentine's Day either. Surviving on Valentine's Day.
You better get some
Basically-
chocolate and flowers.
Oh yeah, I'll be doing something for my wife. Obviously, I'll go get her some nice
Okay.
flowers, a nice bouquet, or something like
That's all
that.
that
But
matters.
yeah, like I don't care about Valentine's Day personally, so she could get me a shoe and I'd be thrilled.
Wow, I
Just
might
one
send you a
shoe?
shoe.
Just one shoe. That's right. Not a pair, just one.
Yeah, and then she
Well,
can say,
happy
"I'll give you the
Valentine's
left
Day.
one next year if you're lucky."
Happy
long
Valentine's
as
Day
it's
to
one
you
of them.
both. To both of you guys who have Valentine's Day, people.
Happy Valentine's Day to you, Pam.
That's right.
Valentine's Day.
I will just probably watch TV. Anyway, moving along. What did
Yeah,
you want to
so-
talk? Do you want to talk about something specific today, Tom?
Yeah, I do. I got to tell you guys, earlier this week, I've been in town now for 2.5 months, and of course, spending time with my kids has been great. But I also have, I come from a very big Mormon family. My mom was the oldest of 8, and those 8 kids have 49 kids between them. So there are 49 cousins or grandkids in the family, and I'm very close with like 3 or 4 of them. We're really very good friends. And one of them, his name is Spence. We went to lunch this week. It's ironic. He's actually in the same business. So for 30 years, he and I, every time we talk, we're talking about business and family stuff, which is kind of cool.
That's cool.
And anyway, we had lunch. It's the first time I've seen him since I've been back. We've had he had a death in his family and his wife's family. But anyway, of course, as we sat there, he was asking about Laura, and he said, he wanted to know the story. How did I meet her? I told him the story. I don't know if I've told the story on the show or not. It doesn't matter. But just know that the show, the story of meeting Laura is actually pretty crazy, and it goes back like 23 years. And so he's like, holy crap, when I was done, he goes, isn't that crazy? Timing is everything. Then he went on to tell me his story. Now, I didn't know this. I've known him my entire life, but I didn't know how he met his wife. So I'm going to tell you in very short, I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version. So 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago, he's in high school. He dates this girl. We're going to call her Amy. It's not her real name. But I didn't have her permission to use her name. So anyway, so they dated when they were like juniors in high school. They broke up while they were still in high school. He graduates a year or so later. He's 19 years old and he leaves for his Mormon mission. Now it's a 2-year commitment. So he's 19. He gets back when he was 21. He gets home. He's dating. He's going to school. He's doing all the stuff that you do. Now he's living still with his parents. He's 23 years old. And he goes out with this girl, drops her off at her house. It's like 1 a.m. And he drops her off at her house and he realizes that he's just a few blocks away from Amy's house, the girl he dated when he was a junior in high school. And he thought,
Very cool.
I wonder what she's doing. And he hasn't really thought of her in years. I mean, it's been 5 years or 4 years since they dated. And it was a high school fling, a little bit of maybe it was a romance. I don't know how long it lasted, but they dated 4 years earlier. Anyway, so he went home and it was really late. And so the next morning, his dad, my uncle, said, hey, Spence, do you remember Amy, the girl that you dated in high school? And Spence was like, yeah, why? And he goes, she called last night and asked for you. Now, this is, again, 30 plus years ago, the land before cell phones were common. So this was, you called home numbers back then.
Right. I remember those days.
Yeah, exactly. Like they were yesterday. But,
yeah.
And she said, hey, she called and said she'd love to hear from you. So Spence called her that afternoon. And by the way, he told me that he didn't tell her right away that he was like he was driving by her house or really close to her house that night because he thought it might be kind of weird. But
Really close.
yeah, so he called her and they got talking. They were married 4 months later.
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah. They've been married for 30 years and they are happy. They've had a ton of kids. They've adopted a ton of kids. They've fostered a ton of kids. They are just two of the greatest people you'll ever meet. And of course, I am really happy for Spence, obviously. And it's a feel good story. It's a very Mormon story, by the way, the 4-month thing. I mean, they lived happily ever after, but it got me thinking, like, okay, so yeah, I had an ex in high school.
As
And
we
I
do.
will use her name. Her name's Stacy. She was like my main girlfriend in high school. And I thought about it going, I think about Stacy from time to time, but there is 0% chance that I would ever give her another shot. I mean, no way. I loved her. I mean, well, loved her for high school stuff. You know what I mean? She's a wonderful person. I wouldn't give her another chance, not because I
Why?
hate her or anything like that, but I don't know. It just feels wrong for me.
Huh,
I'm not judging. Just it
that's
seems
weird.
weird to say, here's my ex, I'm going to get back with her. Okay. And by the way, her mom, when we were together in high school, her mom had been married 7 times, 3 times to
Oh,
the same dude.
wow.
So
That's
clearly for her, it's okay to get back with your ex.
right.
So I just want to talk about the concept of getting back with your ex. When is that okay? When does it make sense? When doesn't it make sense? Does it ever make sense?
Mm.
What are your thoughts?
The age-old question is of when you should get back with your ex. So those endorphins from when we were in high school and our youth, I'll say even through early 20s, I think that those are some of the strongest endorphins for most of us. Um, for me personally, getting back with your ex is something that I am famously good at. My high school boyfriend, who, when you said you wouldn't get back together with your ex, my first thought was, okay, she must have really hurt you. But it was really just a overall feeling for you of I wouldn't date my ex girlfriend again. For me, I was in a very traumatizing relationship in high school and in my early 20s, off and on with the same guy. But to this day, and I'm 57 years old, he is probably still the person that I would say I loved the most in my entire life,
Huh.
felt the most passion for. Broke up and got together numerous times. Even after my marriage ended, we talked and contemplated trying things again 40 years later. Um, so for me, I totally understand the draw and the appeal, and I just think it's that our brains are still forming and those endorphins are so irrationally intense, for better or worse. And it even goes so far as, in my marriage, which only lasted 18 years because we separated 3 times. And the first 2 times we separated, as soon as we separated, we missed each other. Again, on our last episode, we talked about staying with somebody out of fear. It is possible that for both of us, that it wasn't so much that we missed each other or loved each other so much, but just that we just were scared of starting over. We had so many years and a child, and my daughter was his stepdaughter, so much history there that we would, as soon as we were apart, we would want to get back together. And we would wait like a mandatory 6 months. And really, the happiest days of my marriage were the days that Chris moved back in to the house. Like that first day, that level of excitement that it was going to work out and I wasn't going to have to go back out there and meet somebody new and we were going to try again and it was going to be wonderful. And that lasted about at most 2 weeks. And we were right back where we were when we separated. And the third time, finally, we were smart enough to know that it was done. And that's been 5 years now. I'll never, ever get back together with him. But I get it, is
Hmm.
the bottom line. I get that drive to recapture something that made you really happy or made you feel a level of butterfly or just that pit in your gut, that excitement that it's really hard to get again after you've been in a long marriage, or maybe it's an age related thing. I haven't had those emotions except for the day, well, when I first met my husband, the first year, the honeymoon period before we got married, I had those feelings, but not as strong as I did for my high school boyfriend. Nobody in my life as strong as my high school boyfriend.
That's interesting that you should say. Obviously it's different when it's a high school thing. If I had just gone out with a girl once or twice or something in high school and then I ran into her years later, that would be different. But I mean, Stacy and I, we were a thing for like a year and a half. And so, I mean, it was as close to a long-term relationship as you can get in high school, I would think. But I
Eh,
guess for me, once you've broken up with someone, especially as an adult, okay, forget the high school thing for a minute. But if once you've broken up with someone, I guess I just don't understand the theory that, hey, I didn't like this person enough to stay with them, so go ahead and let's bring them back. Is something going to be different this time? Unless you've both gone to like years of therapy, or it just seems like literally the ingredients and the recipe for a disaster.
the difference between you and me right there in a nutshell. You're very black and white. What's done is done. And I'm very gray, for better or worse, which means what's done isn't necessarily done. If I really care about that person, if I really loved them and we hit a wall or had problems, but the love was still there and we separated or broke up and whatever, I don't think that therapy or growth or any of that for me in these two situations with these two relationships, there was enough of a reason to try again. And I would think that that would be really relatable for you because you didn't separate, but you did have, problems in your marriage where your ex-wife cheated on you
Hmm.
and you did give her another chance and you did
Hmm.
stay in the marriage. Is there a huge difference? But, you could have very well separated for 6 months and gotten back together. What's the difference? You still gave her another chance, you still tried again.
So here's the difference. The way you just phrased that is really interesting and really nice, actually. Because if we had separated, the reason I think we would have separated is because she wanted to try out her new boyfriend.
Oh.
If you think about it that way, because why else would we? Because I had said, let's try to make this work. If she had said, well, no, let's separate. It's a trial separation. Well, she's basically seeing if it's going to work out with this other guy. So 6 months later, she comes back. I'm now her second choice.
Mm.
That's the way I see that. Now, what's interesting, Spence's brother, my cousin's brother, I wasn't going to bring this up, but Spence called me, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And he goes, Tom, I need your advice for his older brother, who's, great guy, still my cousin, but I'm not as close with him as I am with Spence. And he goes, my brother, he's been married for 30 years or whatever. His wife came to him a year and a half, 2 years ago and said, hey, I love you, but we've been dating since high school. I never got a chance to meet anyone else. So I would like basically a hall pass. I mean, she didn't say it this way, but
Mm.
I want a hall pass. I want to go try it out. But I hope you'll wait for me.
Mm.
And Spence's brother called Spence and said, what the hell do you do? And Spence, Spence has been married for a million years. He's totally Mormon. He's like, I think that's a horrible idea. And so he called me because he knows I'm far more worldly. And
And that's Mormon.
yes, a little less Mormon, or a lot less. And he said, what do you think? And I said, fuck that. For that exact same reason. She's basically saying, I love you, but I want to go out and she literally said she wanted to go out and have a bunch of sex. So it wasn't just she wanted to go out and fuck a bunch of guys and then decide if she wanted to come back to my cousin. And I'm sorry, that's just wrong. And that is a calculated thing that she's doing, obviously. But
That's
if
very
she had
different.
just started fighting with him and then they separated, and then 2 years later she went, oh man, I've been fucking all these guys, and I realized that my former husband, or my current husband, if we're just separated, is a really nice guy. I want to go back to him. I again, I wouldn't take her back.
This is
That's
a clear case of the grass is not always greener on the other side. And,
right.
people break up all the time because they want to see what else is out there. I've been guilty of doing that back in my 20s many times. Um, The grass is definitely not always greener on the other side. But the fact that you want to see what the grass is like does not bode well for your current relationship. You're probably, not probably, you're not. You're not with the person that you should be with if you're thinking about being with other people. And there are people who have been together since they were kids or 18, or like your son and his girlfriend, they were together a long time. Clearly, things that, people drift apart, they want to see what else is out there. But you know what? At the end of the day, I think that a lot of people realize that for whatever reason they separated for, they were wrong. They made a bad decision. Some people are lucky enough to be able to have a stronger relationship because they left that one, went out there. I mean, you hear about it happening all the time. People breaking up and coming back together, people getting remarried again 2-3 times, like you just mentioned. She'd been that your high school girlfriend's mom had been married 7 times, 3 times to the same guy. I mean, like it just happens. And I think it is just the endorphins and the excitement level, and just, you're bored and you want to shake things up. So you end things and you go about your life and you explore new avenues. And then you realize that what you had was better or the best of everything you've had. And most of the time it's too late. The person that you've hurt or left has moved on without you, as they should. But sometimes those people end up back together and they wind up really happy and in a good relationship. And they look back on that and they're like, thank God we got back together.
In my prior life, I ran a small online divorce company, and we had relationships with divorce attorneys all over the country. And I got to be very good friends with this one divorce attorney who had a never remarry guarantee. And so
Oh,
when she would help a couple get divorced, she would say, "My guarantee is that if you ever remarry each other, I will perform the ceremony." And a few years ago, like maybe 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, the first time that, and she's my age, so she's been practicing law for 30 plus years. She's never had to do that. Well, one of these couples got remarried and actually took her up on it. So she actually had to get licensed in the state of Georgia to perform a wedding, and she had to marry this couple. Isn't
does
that
she have to
awesome?
give them a free divorce again?
I don't know. I don't know if that's part of the guarantee.
Probably
But
not.
anyway, to me, and again, if people are out there and they broke up and they got happy and they got back together and they're all happy, I am so happy for you. This isn't me saying you made a mistake. I just don't understand how you could do it. It's just my brain doesn't work that way. It's like we broke up because of these reasons, and unless these reasons went away, on both sides, you
Right,
know,
right.
if we both
Which
did
they
not
don't.
fix, then you've already baked that cake once. You know the results of this recipe. What the hell is going to happen differently this time, unless you change the
Mhm.
ingredients or change the way it's cooked or something? Something has to change, or you're going to do it again.
And that's definitely true for these long marriages like mine. But like we started this talking about a very young relationship, and my high school boyfriend, you know, it's very easy to look back on that and say we were not mature enough for the level of emotions that I had for him. I think he had them for me also. That just, you see it in the movies. It's almost always high school or college kids that have this overwhelming love that just, and I don't even know if it's love, it's love, it's obsession, it's all of these things. My entire youth, when I think of my youth, and I had a lot of great times and I had a lot of boyfriends, but he's the person that when I think of my youth, it's his face that I see. Um, it's been 28, 38, 40, 40 years since I
Mhm.
was in high school. We've been in touch throughout these last 40 years. And every time that I've been in communication with him, I have almost immediately felt those exact same emotions that I did while we were together, which they just are
Hmm.
insanely intense. And so now we don't talk anymore. We haven't been in touch for a long time. And if his wife listens to our podcast, I'm sure she's really happy to hear that. And you know, now I have looked at my own life and wondered, there's this expression that drug addicts have of chasing the dragon.
Mhm.
And I am not a drug addict, but I know some. Um, chasing that next high, chasing that level of feeling that you had. And I think that once you've had it, you are trying to reproduce it. You are trying to feel it again. And sometimes you believe that going back to that person is the only way to have it again. I've learned that you can have that again in a healthier way with other people. I'm still not married to those people, so maybe it wasn't for the
Right.
better anyway. But, I do know now that I don't wanna ever feel that level of need, for lack of a better word, for another
Mhm.
human being. I wanna really want somebody, but I definitely want something healthier than what that relationship represents for me.
Well, I will tell you, it's just so people don't think that I like absolutely hate anyone that I've ever dated or anything. So my high school girlfriend, she and I have stayed in touch. Um, Even though I would never in a million years date her again. I don't know, about 4.5 years ago, we met for lunch. We haven't seen each other in probably 10 years before that, but we met for lunch. Um, got caught up. I mean, again, she's a great lady. There's just no way, no chance would I ever date her again.
I get
Um,
it. I get
so
it. You're black and white.
yes,
Yeah.
I am.
So
Well,
Tom, if you dated Tom and you've been thinking about him, stop it. Don't bother. Don't waste your time.
well, okay. Well, with that, let's close that one out.
All right.
But time, we're always black. I'm black and white anyway. But hey, just before we jump into that next segment, let's take a minute. As always, please take a minute, rate and review the show. Hope you like what we're doing. We're not professionals, but we at least try to share some wisdom that we've gained over the years. If it's not wisdom, at least it's experience. So if you want to give us some advice or anyone else on whether or not you take your ex back, if you have a cool story to talk about your ex that you took back or a shitty one, feel free. We'd
Cool.
love to hear it in the comments on talkingphase@gmail.com, all of that. Please keep those reviews coming. It's awesome. And with that, I think it's time for our next segment.
You've got mail.
Yep. Well, hopefully it's not about exes. All right, here we go. Pam and Tom, I've been listening to your podcast and love how you tackle these tricky relationship dilemmas.
Oh,
So I
good.
thought I'd write in about mine. That just rolls off your tongue. Tricky relationship dilemmas. I've been talking to this really nice guy on a dating app. Oh, well,
Ugh.
there's the problem.
Yep, right.
He's kind, funny, and seems to have his act together. The problem is when it comes to how we spend our free time. My absolute favorite hobby is playing pickleball, and he hates it. I do not understand the pickleball craze. I
Me
don't
neither.
understand it. I've never even seen people playing pickleball or picked up a pickleball racket. Say that 5 times really fast. So I also love going out with my friends, trying new restaurants, and just being social. But he's a lot more of a homebody who prefers quiet nights in. Sounds like my ex-husband. Now, I'm wondering, is it worth pursuing something with someone whose interests are so different from mine? Could we make it work by doing our own thing, or would these differences eventually cause problems? I do really like him, but I'm super torn. Should I hold out for someone who shares my hobbies, or do you think it's okay if we don't align on everything? I'd love to hear your take on how important shared interests are in building a relationship. Thanks so much for your advice. Sincerely, should opposites attract? With a big fat question mark. They should attract, but they shouldn't marry each other.
Wow. Well, I
I've always
here's
felt
my
that way.
thought.
Okay.
Trinity. Okay, let me back up. While he's more of a homebody, is the way she put it, right? She wants to go
Right.
out, she wants to meet new people, she wants to try new restaurants, and he just wants
Party
to hang
girl.
out at home. It's not about the pickleball. I think it's extrovert versus introvert.
Yeah.
Um, and I will tell you, when Trinity and I got married, I didn't know. I don't think I'd ever heard the term introvert. Um, I mean, it wasn't part of my vocabulary. And she explained, I thought that an introvert was shy. That's what I thought introversion was.
Oh.
And she helped me understand that introverts, which she is one, introverts gain their energy through quiet solitude, being alone, that kind of thing. Where extroverts gain their energy by being around people, learning new things, meeting new people, that kind of stuff. I'm clearly an extrovert because I fucking love doing all that stuff. And she wanted to stay at home. So how did she sign it? Should opposites attract? The
Right.
way she signed it, um, she could have been describing us without the pickleball. I want to go out. I want to have fun. And Trinity wanted to stay in and be quiet. And it caused problems. And Trinity saw that it was causing problems. And it's not like I would sit there and go, God damn it, let's go out. It wasn't that. She just knew that I wasn't getting the energy. I wasn't being fulfilled.
Right.
And so she came up with this really interesting thing. And for years, and this is how dumb I am, for years I bought it.
Oh,
I would say, let's go out to dinner, or let's go, fill in the blank, whatever it was that I wanted to go out and do. And she'd say, I just don't want to share you. Can we
oh,
just stay home? Now, I'm a words of affirmation person. So to me, that was like, oh my gosh, she just wants to be with me. And so I'm all excited that my beautiful wife just wants to be with me. It took years to realize that she was absolutely manipulating me into giving up stuff that was important to me in order to stay at home, which is
right.
important to her. So should opposites attract? Ask the question, is it okay that we don't align on everything? Well, of course. But if you're, assume this thing goes well and you're 10 years down the road and your husband or your partner is sitting there on a Friday night saying, fuck that, I'm just staying home, and you want to go out, that's when the problems start, in my
Yes.
opinion. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's your opinion, which is why they come here and why
Yeah.
they send the email to us. Um, my situation is similar to your situation, except that my ex-husband, the first year while we were dating, he had all of the same hobbies that I did. Like, he was very active. He played volleyball and he had a motorcycle. He always wanted to go for rides and he loved to travel, and we would lay in bed and watch movies together. I mean, we were so aligned in that first year that I was positive that he was my soulmate. And we got married, and within a few months of being married, I got pregnant, and we had Zach. And then after Zach was old enough, I was ready to kind of resume having a social life again. I wanted to go out. I wanted to go to a play or go to a movie, or even just watch something at home on TV together. He wanted to read. He wanted to sit on his computer for hours when he wasn't at work and scroll the internet. And then when he wasn't doing that, he would pay attention to Zach. That was fine. But then at night, about 8 o'clock, he would say he was really tired from work, which I understood. And he would go upstairs and read. And when I would say I wanted to do something with him, like watch a show like we did, he would say, well, why don't you lay down and read with me? And reading is not something that you do with somebody else, especially if you're not reading the same book, which we weren't. Um, and so I felt like I had been manipulated because
Mhm.
it's possible he just changed. It's possible
Mhm.
that he was more tired. It's possible that he didn't want to do those things anymore. It had been a few years, but I still was the same person and I wanted to do those things. And, my parents would babysit, and he just had no desire to go out. He didn't want to make friends. He didn't want to be friendly with people I had made friends with. And it was a huge problem. And I think it was very early on in the marriage. And I think it was the beginning of the end of the marriage, even though we fought for over a decade to make it work. So my advice is, if you don't have things in common now, you're going to have less things in common later. And really ask yourself if you're going to be happy. Even if he says, listen, go do what you want to do, I'm going to stay home. Are you going to be happy doing all those things alone? Because to me, it's a recipe for destructive, for what's the word?
Disaster.
Disaster. Yes. A recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I agree. What's interesting about that is that Trinity's first husband, and for those who don't know this, after Trinity and I got married, our exes married each other,
So
which
weird.
is such a crazy situation. But we were married first. They're the weird ones. But we'll deal with that. But when they were married, when Trinity was married to my first wife's husband, he was as an introvert as well. And so now you have these two introverts. And Trinity was, she's very comfortable with her family. So she's not, she's perfectly okay going to see her family. Well, her first husband apparently wasn't. And so
Oh,
they were married for about 10 years. And for the first 4 or 5 years, he would buck up. And when it was time to go see the family for, whatever family dinners or something like that, they would go out. But then he started going, I just don't feel like it. And so for the last 5 or 6 years of their marriage, he didn't even go to like a family dinner and stuff like that. That's how. And so
I hate that.
it comes down to, like you just said, if you've got these issues now, holy crap, they're going to be magnified 10 or 100
Right.
times down the road. So uh, sure, her question is it okay if we don't align on everything? Yeah, that's okay. It's good to have separate interests. It's good to have hobbies. It's good to, you don't have to do everything together, but you better do something together.
Right. Right. And your core values need to be the same, whether it's family, like what you were just saying. I mean, those are all things that you talk about, if not during the talking phase, early on in a relationship. Nikki and Adam, that's my daughter for people who this is their first episode. They've been living together for a few weeks now, but, in that year plus time where they were dating, I mean, they have very similar values when it comes to their family. Like they both like to spend time with their parents. And luckily, they like to spend time with each other's parents. So it works out for all of us. But like, these are core values. Somebody who doesn't want to do a sport you like, that to me isn't a big deal. To use their relationship again, Adam plays hockey 2 days a week. And, Nikki does whatever she wants on those 2 nights. Sometimes she comes over here and hangs out. Sometimes she stays home, works out, does laundry, whatever. But you have to have a lot of things in common to counteract the things that you don't have in common. If you don't have anything in common, and you said he's a nice guy and he's great and you get along. I mean, there's a lot of nice people out there that you could get along with, but you're talking about sharing your life with somebody. To share your
Mhm.
life with somebody, you better to bring in dating apps somehow. Like I always like to read what somebody writes. Like if they say they love to hike, I
Yeah.
know that I'm going to swipe left on that person because I like to walk mainly in another country or just to stay from getting fat, but like my desire to go on a hike with you is 0%. So if somebody puts on there, I love hiking, that's a swipe left. If somebody says I love cats, I'm allergic to cats, that's a swipe left. So, you know, I think the most important thing is to sit down and figure out, and maybe you need a list for this, but sit down and figure out what do you have in common and what don't you have in common. And you
Mhm.
better make sure that the things you have in common are higher than the things that you don't have in common. Because you sign this should opposites attract. And I said this then, and I'll say it again. And I didn't believe this when I was younger. I didn't care. I went for people that I had nothing in common with, and just all that mattered was chemistry. And I was attracted to them, and that's all that mattered. But that sure as hell is not what matters to me now. Opposites can attract, but they should not get married because it's hard. Marriage and relationships are hard enough without trying to convince somebody that they should like what you like or to give up things that you like because they don't like them.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's not very often that you and I see things exactly the same, but I just look at this and like you said, there are a ton of nice people out there. There are a ton of people you can get along with, but do you really want to spend the rest of your life with someone who's not going to join you? Now, your pickleball phase may not last.
Right. Hopefully. I don't understand. I hope that sport just leaves the way it came.
but so maybe you're not going to be playing pickleball in your 40s or your 50s or your 60s, but the way she wrote it, he hates it. It's not that
Right.
he just doesn't want to play with me. He hates it.
What's the
And so,
difference?
well, I don't know, but well, he could have just said, "Nah, you go ahead and play. It's not for me." But the fact she used the term hates,
Yeah, it's
that's
true.
different. But all of these things, that is just like you said, it is just going to get worse and worse and worse over time. Because if it's not pickleball, it's going to be, racquetball or hiking or, some other activity that involves other people. And I can hear him, because my sister-in-law Deneen always says, I don't want to go out, it's too peoply.
Yeah, I see that all the time. I don't
Yeah.
that's a popular thing.
And it sounds like she likes it peoply and he doesn't like it peoply.
And I just
So
went back and I read that she did meet him on a dating app. And so, I feel like dating apps, when we named the show Talking Phase, we knew we were going to talk about things that had nothing to do with the talking phase on a dating app. But in a situation like this, um, I feel like the talking phase is when you figure out whether you have enough things in common to even warrant a first date. Like, he hated pickleball when you met him, and you probably already loved it.
yep.
And you still met him, even though when you told him, you're making small talk, trying to figure out if you want to have a date. It's very likely that somebody says, "What do you like to do in your spare time?" Because everybody freaking asks me that. I swear to God, I've started to dread the question, because a lot of times I just want to say, "I like to watch TV or read a
Yeah.
book." And I feel like it's such an insufficient answer. But like, when they ask you that question and you give them an answer, and then they say, "Oh, I don't like that." Well, what do you like? Riding my bike by myself on Saturday. Or I see all sorts of things on dating apps that guys like. I mean, I'm talking to a guy right now who told me that the one thing that he wants in a woman is that she should be assertive, confident, and dominant. And I was like, what does that mean? And so
Really? Yeah.
we were talking,
Whips.
and I just said, what does that even mean? He said, I make a lot of decisions while I'm at work, and I don't want to have to make any at home. So I just want somebody to tell me what they want to do, tell me what they want me to do, and I'll just do it. And I was thinking to myself, and I told my daughter this, and she said, you did an episode a while ago where you said that you liked men who took charge. And she's like, so how can you think about meeting this guy who is telling you that he doesn't want to take charge? He wants to be taken charge of.
Good
And I said,
question.
it's a great question. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? I've only ever been with men who told me what they wanted. And then I had to decide whether it was something that I wanted or not. And I thought, maybe it'll be nice to meet somebody and go out with somebody that's like, I'm like, well, do you want to go to dinner? Or they say, do you want to go to dinner? And you say yes. And they're like, well, what do you want to eat? And they don't even like, I could always choose. So maybe there's something to be said for that. I did ask him if he was just looking for like a dominatrix, because that's not my thing. And he said, no, it has nothing to do with sex. He just wants to go along. And you know what? I couldn't find something right off the bat that turned me off about that. That
That's
doesn't mean
great.
that I won't, but I'm going to meet him, because you know what? It might be nice to be able to make the decisions once in a
Well,
while.
I can't wait for an update, because
Probably won't happen.
well, no, I mean, you're going to meet him. I want to
Okay,
hear it.
well,
Whether we do it on the show or not, you need to tell me what goes
I
on.
will, but that half the people that I make plans with, like, you just stop hearing from them before the plan ever comes, or you confirm the date and they say, "Oh no," And I told you about that guy weeks ago, that we had been talking for weeks, and then we had a date planned, but I didn't hear from him. And normally, if I don't hear from them, I just don't go and we don't talk again, because they don't go either. But I reached out to him the day of the date and said, "Are we still on?" And he was like, "No, I can't go. I'm really sorry," and closed his whole profile done. So I think that he was probably married, and I think there are quite a few married guys on dating apps. But back to her, read a dating app, read what people like to do, and make sure that those are things that you like to do also. And if I know a lot of people don't even read the profiles, but I can't tell you how many times somebody will say something that I wrote in my profile and I know they didn't read it. And I'll say, "Did you read my profile?" And they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I read it." And I'm like, "Well, then you should already know,
Mhm.
the answer to this question, because I'm pretty much an open book on there." So read those freaking profiles, you guys, and ask questions before you meet somebody. And then you don't wind up liking somebody who's nice, but you have nothing in common with.
Well, and the other thing, by the way, just on the same note, I've said this on the show before, that look at the pictures too. I look at a woman's picture on a dating app, and if all 5 of her pictures are her skydiving, hiking, paddleboarding, pickleballing, fuck that. How about where's the picture of you sitting on the couch watching Netflix? I
When do
mean,
you rest, people?
yes, there's a balance in life, and
Right.
I like to go out, but I love it when Laura comes over and we watch Day of the Jackal.
Right.
I mean, I love that, but
I
we're
have
going
that
out
on
to
my
see a comic.
profile.
What's that?
I said I have that on my profile. I like to go out, but I also like to stay in and watch Netflix. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not here to be your trainer or your trainee or to be trained. Like,
Yeah.
let's find people that we have things in common with that enjoy doing the same things, and let's stop changing for other people, you guys. Like,
Absolutely.
you know what? Especially if you're in your 40s and your 50s and you already, don't sacrifice who you are just to be with somebody.
Yeah. Amen. I'm with you. And
All right.
whatever,
We
however she
agree.
framed it, just I'd say get out now. That's me.
Or tell him if he doesn't play pickleball, you're getting out.
Well, then you've just told him to change for her.
Yeah. Well, maybe if he's going to lose her, I don't know. I was trying to give her some hope, but I don't really have any. I'm so sorry. I almost always have hope. And so when I don't have any, it's always based on my own personal experiences, but you can take our advice or leave it, like everybody. And if you guys would like some advice from us that you also can take or leave, please send us your emails, talkingphase@gmail.com. You know by now that I read every single email. I forward them to Tom, and then we do our best to quote unquote help you. But it doesn't just have to be advice. You can tell us how you feel about something that we have said or advice we have given to other people, or you can tell us topics that you're interested in talking about. And that we will eventually get to them, and I will reply to your email, talkingphase@gmail.com.
Yep. And as I do every week, want to thank everybody for listening. Want to thank Pam for being an amazing co-host. This is so much fun every week. Ask you guys out there, please take a minute, rate, review the show. We do this every Friday morning. Follow us on all of the different social medias. Pam does a great job doing that. I never do. So thank you, Pam, for taking care of things. With that, I'm going to sign off. Till next Friday, this is Pam and Tom. We're out of here.
All I have for you guys today is happy Valentine's Day.
There you go.
Have a great day.